For the first time, scientists have grown mouse embryos in an artificial uterus, and some experts indicate that humans could be next, prompting major ethical questions and concerns. Take a look at this video from the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel, where scientists recently grew more than 1,000 mice embryos inside artificial wombs. According to a study published last week in the journal Nature, the researchers removed embryos from the uteruses of mice at 5 days gestation and grew them for 6 more days in the artificial wombs. That marked about halfway through their gestation period. The experiments, scientists say, were meant to help them understand how mammals develop and how gene mutations, nutrients, and environmental conditions may affect a fetus. Up until now, researchers could only fertilize eggs from mammals in the lab and grow them for a short time. A developmental biologist at the Weizmann Institute of Science told Technology Review, quote, "This sets the stage for other species. I hope that it will allow scientists to grow human embryos until week 5. He continued, "I do understand the difficulties. I understand you are entering the domain of abortions. So I would advocate for growing it until day 40 and then disposing of it." Lots to talk about here, and we're joined now on Skype by Dr. Joseph Meaney, president of the National Catholic Bioethics Center, and by Dr. David Prentice, vice president and research director for the Charlotte Lozier Institute. Welcome to you both. David, what's your greatest concern with these experiments of growing mice in an artificial womb?
I think the greatest concern is that it doesn't stop with mice. As you indicated, this researcher in Israel already would like to start doing the same type of experiments with human embryos, essentially growing human embryos to the point where the heart is fully beating, the brain starting to develop, and other items that obviously are important to make us human. We really think there should be a 0-day limit in terms of growing human embryos.
Absolutely. Joseph, the Catholic Church condemns ending the life of a human at any stage of development, including on day 1 of life at the moment of fertilization. If humans were to be experimented on next, would it entail killing human life at the earliest stages?
That's correct, yes. And in fact, the Church has already spoken to this issue in the instruction from the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, Donum Vitae, back in 1987, that the only experiments that could be morally licit on embryos or human fetuses would be ones that are directly therapeutic. They would actually be there to help them resolve issues, but nothing that would put their lives in danger could be acceptable.
And just a follow-up to that, Joseph, the Catholic Church also condemns the creation of human life outside of the Marriage Act. Here's a quote from the Catholic Catechism, quote, "Techniques that entail the dissociation of husband and wife by the intrusion of a person other than the couple are gravely immoral." Joseph, would this fall under that category of dissociating husband and wife?
That's correct, yes. I mean, the thing that I see is very, very problematic in terms of treatment for infertility, et cetera. The Church is very clear. What is acceptable is something that assists the marital act, but anything that would replace the marital act, like in vitro fertilization where the conception takes place in a lab, which is what they would want to do here, is completely unacceptable to the Church.
David, how do you think now having Javier Becerra as our new HHS secretary might change ethical oversight of similar experiments in the United States? Are you concerned at all that that might happen?
Definitely we're concerned. Secretary Becerra is no friend to the pro-life community. And now that he's in charge of overseeing all these regulations, you can anticipate that things are going to open up for more types of horrific human experiments.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Joseph, scientists argue that this research may help us learn more about why some pregnancies end in miscarriage. What's your response to people who ask, well, isn't that a good thing for us to learn? Aren't those experiments worth it for that?
So it's a very good idea to look into the causes of miscarriage. And in fact, doing animal experimentation is the way to go, and other things that do not put human embryos in danger. However, procreation is all about, respecting the dignity of the human person and creating an artificial womb, where the child is completely disassociated from the mother for 9 months or even, just a few weeks. But all of that, it was completely contradictory to the dignity of the human person.
David, from your expertise, are we correct to assume there could be a slippery slope here? I mean, these experiments right now are just on mouse embryos. They have not yet experimented on human embryos here with the artificial womb. Are we correct to be concerned that may come next?
I think we're definitely correct to assume that. The researcher in Israel indicated he wanted to move in that direction. Scientists up to this point have been limited because they were unable to go beyond a few days. Well, now we're going to see a rush to try and experiment on human beings early in their life.
And Joseph, just want to go to you now and ask if you have any final thoughts here and any criticism that people say that, well, is this just further proof the Catholic Church is anti-science?
Right. So it's very important to say the church is very pro-science. We're involved in so much scientific research at Catholic universities, et cetera. However, we always put the human person at the center of science, not to be experimented upon, but to be actually helped. And so these kinds of, experiments where they will actually be killing human beings are never something that can be done. We rather have to go and look to see what we can do to help people and, prevent miscarriage, absolutely, but not by putting children at risk.
Well, thank you both for your clarity and your expertise, Dr. David Prentice and Dr. Joseph Meaney. Thank you both.
Thank you.